Welcome back to Light the Fuse, the Mission Impossible podcast. This is Drew Taylor, once again joined by Charles Hood.
Hello.
And you just heard the legally dissimilar theme music by Kevin Blumenfeld.
But Paramount, feel free to sue Kevin. He's ready. His team of lawyers is ready.
Yeah, he's kind of complacent. He's in the Christmas time mood. It's a perfect time to strike, I would say. Before we get on with the great Eddie Hamilton Part 2, we just want to remind you to like and subscribe. We are now on Apple Music, Stitcher, Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Play, and soon even more platforms. And we have a brand new Facebook page, and that's Light the Fuse Pod, which is exactly like our Instagram and Twitter, so be sure to follow us there. And if you do listen, please rate and review wherever you're listening. It really helps us a lot. And also be sure to send in questions and whatever else you have. We always love to hear from you guys. So without further ado, this is Eddie Hamilton, Part 2.
Go ahead, whatever you want.
All right, so...
Ask about the 180.
The 180? All right, yeah. So I was watching Rogue Nation last night, and I saw Fallout last week at this IMAX screening at IMAX headquarters. Okay. To me, it felt like, and maybe this is more of a cinematographer choice between the two different DPs, but the 180 rule of following eye lines and things, it seems like Rogue Nation followed that more closely, and Fallout it all totally works. Yeah, but it seems like there's some 180 rule violations that's true. In Fallout.
But that's the least. It's so unimportant. Genuinely, it's not the emotion of the scene is the most important thing. You can look at Walter Murch's rule of 7 he's got, and the emotion is like 51% of the edit choice, and 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional continuity is like 3% and 2%. It's so unimportant. If you understand the geography, then it's about, and the reason that we did it is mostly with Julia and Luther,
at the end,
and it's because we had these great, Chris calls them pressure angles, where they're really close. The camera's close on them, and it's a pressure angle, so you feel the character under pressure in the moment, and it's what is right for that moment. When those characters are under that much pressure, it's the right way to cut the scene so that you are momentarily disorientated, but you're not really. But it's just correct for the emotion of the scene, and so it doesn't matter. It genuinely doesn't matter. It's like, is it right for the emotion? Are you in the scene? I'm aware of it. Of course I'm aware of it. And it's important. It's very important if it's confusing. So there were moments in the bathroom scene, for example, where, the geography of the bathroom is such that there are 2 bathrooms with this bank of mirrors in the middle. And we have to make sure that is clear to the audience right up front. And in the first few versions of that scene, we didn't quite have the coverage to show that properly. So they went and we filmed one of the first scenes where Henry walks around the corner and down towards the cubicles at the end. We went and filmed that we went back and refilmed that 3 months later because we hadn't set up the geography. Because people were like, wait, because there's that great shot where we're tracking with Ethan and then we reveal Henry behind the mirrors. Fantastic shot. But if you don't understand the geography, that's really disorienting and confusing. So I would choose to follow all the rules of filmmaking there, to make sure that the geography is clear. But when it's like the 6th scene with these characters and they're both hunched over this device, it's like, you get it, it's fine.
I didn't even notice it, I think, until like probably the last time I saw it, which is I think the 5th time.
Yeah. You're bringing up Henry. We should get you to weigh in on the mustache.
Yes, yeah. It was great.
Well, yeah, I know.
I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting how he. It was his idea completely. He just said to Chris, "Hey, how about this for an idea?" Right. Now, I have a theory that people with mustaches are clear villains in the film, right? So if you see a guy with a tash, he's immediately suspicious. I'm sorry, it's just so. I thought, well, it's a bit of a giveaway that he's going to be an antagonist. Now, we didn't hide that, and he's an antagonist in the first film. But for me, I was like, most people watching this film are going to go, Well, he's clearly going to be some kind of bad guy because he's got a moustache. Now, I may be a small minority of people who think that, but
But you put him in the opening too, right? In the mission briefing, he's one of the apostles.
That is true. That is true. Yeah, I mean, you have to be really paying attention to see that he's in there. Yeah, that is true. He is there, and there was a whole scene where, in fact, when he goes in and there's that wonderful, again, second mask gag when where the audience realizes that the IMF have swapped Lane out for Benji, and Walker has just basically confessed to Benji unknowingly. It's just so beautifully played and so perfect. That scene was 2 minutes longer, and there was loads more dialogue from Walker about explaining more of the plot, about how his apostles did this and he did that, and how he got the plutonium, and again, it was like the audience doesn't need it. They understand enough to know that they've collaborated in some way, and we just need to get to the bit where there's that moment where the penny drops, when he says, she was right, the IMF is just grown men playing, in rubber masks, and then you're just like, and it's so satisfying, and then Alec Baldwin comes in and does the whole thing. It's just great. It's great. Anyway,
in that scene too, there's this amazing shot that's so seamless, where you have two Solomon Lanes.
Yes.
Where Benji's putting on a mask.
It's beautiful. It's so old school.
How did you do that?
That's just
because there's two of them.
You want to see how the sausage is made, really? I mean, Chris will tell you, but basically, it's a very simple trick of using a motion control camera.
Right.
Motion control camera is a camera that can just repeat the same move.
Right.
And it was actually the idea of Jodie Johnson. No, but what's clever is that the camera actually leaves one of the lanes for about 18 frames and then comes around, and then you reveal him. So you get this 18 frame point where there's only one of them on the screen, and then the camera comes around. But they did it, with Lane in the front, pretending to be asleep, and then they did it again with where they put a double, and then they put Lane in the back, and it was the idea of Jodie Johnson, the visual effects. It was totally his idea. As if I recall, I think that it was something that was presented to Chris as here's an idea for an in-camera mask gag, which doesn't require. It's about the one in Rogue Nation though, which is done with mirrors. Do you know about that one?
No.
Oh, okay. So this is cool. So the one. Where in the flashbacks, where Benji is talking about, well, we just impersonate the guy who stole the ledger in the first place, and then you see Benji having the mask put on him. The camera comes around, and you see a mirror. You see the real guy in a mirror opposite, and actually that is just a fake set with a hole. Right, but the whole set is built like a mirror, and so effectively you've got a double for Ilsa and a double for you've got Tom in the mirror and a double for Tom. It's super cool. It's all done for real, but if you look carefully when you re-watch it, go back and watch that thing where you see the mask being put on Benji, the sync of the guys are trying to copy each other in the mirror, and so their hands don't quite line up, but it is a totally in-camera mask gag. It's really elegant, that one in Rogue Nation.
Awesome.
So they're always trying to think of ways to do it, elegantly without relying on CG.
You're thinking to yourself, Parent Trap. How would Haley Mills
Exactly.
The opera scene in is masterfully edited.
That's your Vatican scene.
Yeah, it's true. It is.
Did you revisit Man Who Knew Too Much before?
You know what? I did look at it because I wanted to see how they used the musical score in that.
Right.
There's these close-ups of the baton, and you're traveling across the notes. It's not quite as stylized as what we did in Rogue Nation, but I'm a huge Hitchcock fan anyway, and it was nice to go back and see Jimmy Stewart and to watch that film. And again, that scene was just something which Chris had this idea of it, and he sensed the end result. He had this idea of Ethan having to make the decision about, I've got to shoot the Chancellor. And I have to make the decision in half a second because the note's coming, so I've got to shoot the Chancellor. It's a bit like that Speed, isn't it? It's like shoot the hostage when he says at the beginning of Speed. It's like, what do? You shoot the hostage. But you have to have set up the entire geography of the world and all the stakes in advance so that when you get to the moment in the music at the climax and you see Ethan having to make the decision, you understand everything that's going through his mind in the tiny amount of time that you're given to do it. And so in order to set up the geography and the rules of the world, and the fact that he's only got one bullet, and the fact that there's a guy there and there's a guy there and Ilsa's there and the Chancellor's there and Benji's there, and it's something which was just months of work, 7 or 8 months of just, it was literally the first thing to be filmed and the last thing to be filmed on that movie, and all these tiny little connective bits of tissue so that you understand everyone's geography. It was just a real puzzle, and again, something which when you're editing, you really don't know quite how it's going to end up, but you have to start. So you put shots on the timeline and you start watching them, and it's way too long, and then you start going, okay, well, what about if we move this here and we move that there and we took a bit here and we put this, and we need to film a shot of the cop coming out of the door and walking down the corridor, and then we need to see Benji, and then do this and do that, and we slowly pieced it together, always having this idea of what it was going to be eventually, but never quite knowing, and it was just a process of constant refinement, and enormously rewarding when we finally everything slotted into place. But it was an enormous challenge, and something which we had faith that eventually we would get there, but you don't really know when you're what it's like when you're making a movie. You have to have faith that you're doing the right thing, but you don't really know until you start putting it together and screening it and feeling how the audience reacts, whether you've actually got anything or not. You don't really know. You're going on experience and faith and trust and passion, mostly. And so, yeah, that was the opera scene, if that answers your question.
Yeah,
I hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do one more quick fire?
Sure.
And then I have a very important question.
Yeah, no, it's all good. Keep going.
Is it the ranking? Or
Yeah.
do we do one more question?
Yeah, one more question.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so we talk about the location title cards in the series.
Yes.
Some are better than others.
Yes.
And the Kashmir title card
is
the best one in the series. It is amazing.
Yeah.
And we want to know how that came about.
That was just Chris's idea. He was like, we're going to see Kashmir on this map, on this iPad, and then we're going to push in through it, and it's going to feel like it's growing on a map, and then we're going to dissolve through to them traveling. The thing is about Mission is you never really see them traveling. That's the
right.
It's like they're always somewhere, and then they're somewhere else. So you never really see them get on a plane and travel. It's always just everything has to be in motion. And I think, interestingly, one of the things about 3 that didn't work so well was seeing Ethan in an office environment, because he's never really in an office environment in any of the others. He's always out, in action. He's always in some remote location doing something cool, and never really in an office. And that's kind of Benji's job, or Luther's job perhaps, but Ethan's always out and about, and so we never want to show traveling. It's always like they're in London, now magically they're in, and it's the same in Fallout when they travel from Paris to London. It happens like in a dream. Ethan just has this image of his wife with Lane, and then he wakes up, and then you're in London. You're like, wait, Are we in London now? Yes, you are. It's like a really elegant way of transitioning to a different part of the location.
Love those dream sequences.
Well, yeah, this is the first one with dream sequences.
That's also true, and it was something which, again, wasn't Mission, but was right for this film. Because it starts with a dream. And I think, and also you have to remind people of Julia in the middle of the film,
right?
So that when she turns up at the end, they've gone, oh, wait, yeah, that was the girl from the wedding. Oh, but there was also this other scene in the middle where we saw her. So she's obviously somebody, for people who have not seen any of the others, it has to work for them as well. In fact, it's incredibly important that it works for people who've never seen any of the other missions. We're well aware that, there will be a sizable percentage of the audience who may not have seen them. So we stress test the film in that environment as well, and we had to have it, and really it was the only way to make it work. And also it allows you to connect with Ethan as a character a lot more. You do really, I think you that was always Chris's pitch, was making you feel more emotionally invested and connected with Ethan as a character from the very beginning all the way through, and I think he succeeded in that. I remember I went on set to watch them film that final scene between Ethan and Julia in the hospital, because I was like, I would love to see this. And it was actually filmed on a mountainside in New Zealand, so that they had that amazing view out of the tent. But it could have been filmed anywhere, obviously, but it was, we traveled for an hour and a half in the freezing cold at 5 a.m. and then the sun comes up at 7:20 or whatever, and then we're filming by 8:15, and then by 10:15 they'd finished filming, or maybe it was a bit later, but I remember it was dark when they were rehearsing, and then the sun came up, and then by the time they turned round, they started on Tom, and by the time they turned round, then the sun was up and you had that beautiful view out of the tent. But I wanted to be there because it's like I just wanted to see this resolution between Ethan and Julia, just as somebody who's as a nerd, as a fan. I wanted to see it play out, and then I remember taking the piece of music that Giacchino, is that how you pronounce it? Giacchino?
I've heard Giacchino.
Giacchino, okay.
Different things.
But how the Giacchino, what he wrote for that scene at the end of Ghost Protocol when Ethan sees Ilsa, the wrap-up scene, when Ethan sees Julia across the way, right. And there's a little moment where they exchange a look. There's this beautiful theme that he wrote, which he used in 3 as well. It's like this piano motif, and I put it on there as a test. I never show it to Chris because he hates watching stuff with music on it, but I wanted to watch it for myself with music, and I remember thinking, I think they've nailed this. It really works. Like, you can see the emotion on Ethan's face, the relief, and this is going to be a great way to end the film. I've got a feeling this is really going to work, and these are these incredibly private moments you have as an editor on a movie where I'm literally the first person on the planet to see this. The dailies arrive, it's raw footage, I watch it, and then I slowly build the scene, and by 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock in the evening, I'm watching the end of Mission Impossible Fallout on my own in a house in New Zealand, in Queenstown, in the dark, and I put the music on from Ghost Protocol just to see how it felt, and I remember thinking, this is going to be great, and it's so sweet. It's a real privilege and an honor I treasure that every day working on a movie, because I'm always the first person to see the film, to see any iteration of the movie and to see what it may end up being. It's so exciting on a daily basis to be given that honor. It's the best job, I think. But I would say that.
Or we have to ask. Now I've thought about your quickfire questions. We have to ask one more.
Yeah.
Before. Okay. The transitions in this movie, are unlike any other.
Yeah, that's
well,
true.
maybe 2 had some similar ones, but the smoke.
Yes, smoke wipe and an Ilsa wipe.
The Ilsa wipe.
And there's a BMW location title card wipe.
Yes, that's also true. Yeah, so again, those were just things that organically felt right. The Ilsa wipe is something where we struggled with the transition for that scene. And we were like, why don't we just do a cheeky shape wipe and just see how it feels? It works. It's so great. So it's fine. And Chris was like, yeah, great, let's do it. And the BMW thing was something I just tried because they had that great shot, and I thought, yeah, let's do that. That's fun. It's just stuff that you play with and present as an idea, and then people kind of go, yeah, that's cool. I dig it. And I remember using a dissolve in Rogue Nation. We only used a couple of dissolves, I think, in that movie, but again, they're both really effective and work and feel emotionally correct. Maybe there's only one dissolve in that film. I can't remember where it was now, but no, I think it was after, isn't it, when Ilsa drives away on the motorbike? After Ethan gets knocked off, and I think there's a dissolve there that we used, and there's one other somewhere else, I think, but yes, it's a good point. But we are conscious of them, and a lot of thought goes into them.
Yeah. Oh, they're great.
And awesome. We know that they'll be picked apart by fans, like you guys. Yeah. So we don't take any decision lightly, I promise you.
All right, well, here's the big question.
Yeah.
Can you rank the Mission Impossible movies? This is just
at least your top 3.
It's a huge challenge.
It's a huge challenge, but this is just Eddie Hamilton's.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go.
Start from worst to best.
Worst.
Yeah. Or least favorite.
I'm not going to put my own ones in there. I mean, I'm very proud of them, but I don't it's very hard to emotionally connect with something that you've seen 1,000 times.
Let me tell you something. Lauren nakedly put his in his top 3. So
yes. Okay. No, there is a precedent. I'm not going to do that.
Top 2,
to be honest,
yeah.
I think I would go if I'm doing 3. probably. I think Ghost Protocol, because the Burj Khalifa is the high watermark of action set pieces in these movies. And I remember seeing it in IMAX in the cinema, on 70mm film, 4:3, full out 70, 15 per IMAX. It was extraordinarily
Did you love
exciting.
The way that he opened it up too?
Oh, totally. Oh, yeah. No. Oh, of course we did it twice in Fallout. I'm well aware of that, but I remember seeing that, and I was always gutted that it never made it onto the Blu-ray, version.
But you're doing it for
Fallout, absolutely. The IMAX aspect ratio changes are absolutely in there, because I wanted people to have that opportunity to it's slightly geeky and nerdy, but it's like, I know it'll matter to a lot of people who want to see that shit. And it's a shame that there's no way of seeing that now.
Yes.
Maybe it's like there's a bootleg of it on YouTube or something, but you can't see it.
We'd actually love to do an IMAX double feature, try to get that to happen. Or we could get Ghost Protocol and Fallout as a double feature. So
but
it'd
be so cool. I mean, seeing that way it opens out, the way the shot was just, planned. But Chris planned these ones absolutely. He's like, Ethan walking to the edge of the plane, IMAX opens up. Ethan running to the helicopter, I remember he saying to me, IMAX opens up. Even
it's
when
like going from black and white to color in Wizard of Oz.
Exactly. Even when I showed I remember when they were leaving New Zealand, Chris and Tom said, "Can you do a sizzle reel for the crew so they can see what we've done in New Zealand, all the helicopter footage?" And there was a lot, I swear, 70 hours of helicopter footage down to 7 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever it is in the film. The hardest thing I've ever done. It's so daunting when you're presented with that amount of stuff to go through. But I remember building the sizzle reel for them and putting the IMAX opening even in the sizzle reel, because Chris had told it to me, and it was only like 3 minutes long, using music from the other movies, but I put it in there so that when we watched it on a TV, so the 5 or 6 helicopters all landed on the last day of filming in New Zealand, and everyone was excited and high-fiving and thrilled. The amount of relief when the helicopters landed safely every day could not be quantified. It's so dangerous what they were doing, and every safety precaution is taken, and they are all world-class experts. But still, if something happens in a helicopter, there's not much you can do. You're gonna probably die. And so especially if you're like above forest or in mountains. I mean, there's no way to get to you. It's just crazy. Anyway, so it was so stressful, but they all landed on the last day. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. And then I was able to show, we all sat around and we watched this 3-minute sizzle, and everyone thought it was great. And I'd managed to even show them shots they'd filmed the day before, because the dailies are processed overnight, and I went through and I picked all the stuff they'd got from it. So it felt really current, and they were like, "My God, we only filmed that like 12 hours ago." And I put the IMAX change in there because I knew, as a fan, I want it in there, because it's like, it means so the world to people who care about that stuff. It's cool.
Yeah.
So Ghost Protocol number 1. We can't.
I'd probably go Ghost Protocol and then 3, because there was so much I really love about 3, and I did have a great time watching it at the Cinerama Dome, and the lip reading was cool. I wonder if we should bring back the lip reading in another movie, because it's a cool thing, isn't it?
It was in 4.
It was brought back in. It was, and I feel like that would be a nice Easter egg to put in another movie, if the lip reading, which is a cool thing that was a cool payoff, and but also there's the whole rabbit's foot thing, which we nodded to a bit in Rogue Nation with the key ring at the beginning. But it's
nice to hear that these Easter eggs are really there and not products.
No, they are. They're genuinely and Tom is aware. People still ask him what the rabbit's foot is. He is aware of. JJ's mystery box theory works brilliantly for a lot of things, but it does create enormous frustration as well, because you're like, what is the mystery box? What is the rabbit's foot? It's we in Rogue Nation, we were aware of this ledger. If we didn't explain what it was, it would just be this literally a MacGuffin, like the rabbit's foot. What do they steal? But anyway, in the end, Chris was like, you know what it's going to be? It's just going to be a ton of money, because he's going to need a ton of money for his terrorist organization, and it will be satisfying enough for the audience that there's all this money, and that Ethan...
The MacGuffin doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but you just need to know that it's not, just the filmmakers knew what it was.
Let me tell you, that did confuse me though going into Fallout, which I've told you before.
Yeah,
is like, what is Solomon's deal? I thought, when they revealed that it's the money, I was like, is he just sort of a Hans Gruber type?
I know.
Like he's like a bank robber, but it's to fund.
It's to fund the organization.
Yeah, which you get more of in this one. But
But yeah, no, that's what it was. But also it was when you talk to Chris about it, you can ask him because we didn't know what it was.
Right.
But we were aware that it would be frustrating if we didn't explain what it was. Right. In the way that the rabbit's foot is just like, it just niggles you at the end of that movie. You're like, what was the rabbit's foot? And Chris was like, the simplest solution is there's just a ton of money that he needs, and that Ethan manages to cleverly play against him by memorizing the bank figure so he can't kill it. All that stuff at the end, which was done out of necessity because we only had 2 weeks to film the ending of the movie. I mean, I'm well aware that the action highlight of Rogue Nation is the middle of the film, and at the end it's just a small gun battle and 2 people running through the streets of London and the villain being put in a box. Which was
satisfying.
It's satisfying in the way that the end of World War Z was satisfying, even though the action climax of that movie is in the middle, but the end is incredibly suspenseful.
Well, all of the Mission Impossible movies before Fallout sort of follow that too. They all kind of hit a peak in the middle, whether it's the bank vault or Vatican or Dubai.
Okay, maybe, but I think like the fight scene in the parking lot is pretty awesome at the end of Ghost Protocol.
Oh yeah, we love that.
That is an awesomely like beautifully thought out and invented and choreographed sequence.
And which is the train in the first movie too.
Although interestingly, incredibly short. When you watch it back now, it's like all the images are and it's beautifully filmed. Like the amount of energy, how they did it, where the amount of wind they must have been throwing on Tom on the roof of the train.
140 miles an hour.
It's really, really, really good, and it totally stands the test of time. But it's astonishingly short in comparison to what we did in Fallout, which is like a mammoth set piece with diffusing bombs and helicopter and a fight on a cliff and all that stuff. But it's kind of what Chris imagined and what he wanted and what Tom wanted, and so we kind of found a way to make it work. But
more than that, you guys nailed it. I mean,
I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased to hear you say that. It was enormously challenging, but you use all the tools. The music is amazing. The acting is great. You care for the characters. Henry's bringing it, and that's when they're fighting on the cliff top. They really went to Norway and they filmed that for real. It's completely nuts. And Tom, there were scenes where Tom was doing it without the safety harness on as well, because he didn't want to be constrained by that. And I remember watching the dailies, and you're literally you're like on the edge of your seat watching the raw footage going, oh my God, he's really close to the edge. And Henry's got his harness on, and there are bits where he's holding on to Tom because, and you're just thinking, this is, I don't know.
Is it true the final shot of Fallout, literally that white right before the curtain call, is the film running out?
Yes, that's true. It was very funny. Chris was like, I need 3 more frames on that. I'm like, dude, if 2 more frames, then we're on the flash. It's like we can either artificially slow it down, but it won't look good, or we can he's like, just leave the flash in there because it'll be cool. And it's like, it's so Mission that on the when Tom nailed the take, the film ran out literally 3 frames later. It's like that is the run and gun nature of these movies. And so it's great that he was just like, let's throw it in there, it'll be fun.
But it's also great. I mean, we don't want this to be the last movie, obviously, but it does feel like, okay, if this is the last one, I've gotten everything that I need from the franchise.
But that's what you never know if you're going to make another one. And Chris wanted to go all out, and Tom wanted to go all out, and so I'm thrilled. But just to go back to the ranking, it's 4, 3, and then 1 probably for me. Okay. If I'm picking my top 3.
So what about 1 kind of still speaks to you?
Well, there are things about 1 that I love, like the whole opening is incredibly economical. The way they set up the chewing gum, and they set up the team, and they set up it's extremely tight. I mean, beautifully tight. The way that even the scene at the beginning where Emilio Estevez is like, say his name, and the guy says, and then it's so quick compared to our hospital scene. You know, it's very, very, very economical. It's beautifully economical. And then I love the crash zooms, and I love the Dutch angles, and I love the split diopter shots, and all that De Palma stuff is just like awesomely cool. And the CIA heist is still incredibly suspenseful now. I mean, it's so well choreographed and so exciting to watch. I mean, all the Book of Job stuff is kind of really dated and creaky, you know.
But it also doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really matter, and but you know, and then the whole stuff on the train at the end it's so ambitious for the time and so effective, and it's amazing when you see how young Tom looks. You know, in those, it's like you forget. You're like, wow, look at that.
His chemistry with Vanessa Redgrave is so great.
Oh, so good, so good, so good.
And I love the nod that you guys did.
Yes. That was something that Chris really wanted to try and figure out a way to get in there, and it's done slightly off camera, but it's there for people who want to pay attention to it.
Do you miss the musical number?
It's interesting. Here's the problem. The musical number that was there, you know, it announces a major player as a character. You know, it's like when Kate Capshaw does her musical number in Temple of Doom, it's awesome. And then she's in the film all the way through, and she's great. I love that. I'm a huge fan of Temple of Doom. I'm a bit of a naysayer. A lot of people don't think it's, but it was the first one I saw in the cinema, and so. And also the opening 20 minutes is awesome, perfect escapism. The diamonds in the ice, and then it's all, and like, hold on to your potatoes, Dr. Jones, and all that stuff. To be fair,
that was stuff. A lot of that was left over from Kasdan's original draft of Raiders.
Okay, well, great. I don't care. I love it, and I love the jumping out of the plane in the dinghy, and then the going down, and then it's just amazing. Yeah. And then the whole ending with the minecart chase and the water and the bridge, and it's just like out of this world stuff. And also, you know, so difficult to do that. Like, the visual effects are amazing. Yeah. You know, but just old-fashioned roto for all. I mean, it's astonishing how hard. I mean, I think Return of the Jedi is the high watermark of those old-school photochemical compositing shots. All that stuff inside the Death Star. Yeah. With the Millennium Falcon and the TIE fighters flying. It's so mind-bogglingly difficult to do that photochemically. Nowadays it's easy, but it's so beautifully done. I mean, amazing stuff.
I also love that Temple of Doom is a movie that is the perfect movie to be made by two guys going through horrible divorces at the time. Like you can see that that pain and that kind of darkness.
I guess maybe
ripping the hearts out.
The idea of the device of divorces just really depresses me. You know, it's like. Although, the whole like pulling the guy's heart out.
Yes.
I saw the movie as a child. It was disturbing.
I was in the cinema seeing that, and I remember, and then when I saw it on video later, I was like, what? There was some really horrific, and it's not there in the Blu-ray, and yet you can see it on YouTube. Someone's put it on there, so you can like revisit that. But I remember thinking, this is like, maybe Spielberg thought he had gone too far, or I don't know, but it was
they were
dark,
both depressed,
really dark. Where were we?
Kate Capshaw.
Yes,
movie.
Of course. The musical number. The White Widow didn't deserve a big introduction.
We love the White Widow.
Yeah, we do love the White Widow. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But the introduction that gave her was kind of like threw the film off balance, because she's cool. She's a great character, and everyone loves her, and Vanessa's great, and
but there was a fight between her and Ilsa.
Oh, it was discussed, but never filmed.
Never filmed it.
No. That was discussed as something that may happen towards the end, but you know, it didn't evolve like that. And but the problem was we could get more characterization out of the speech, and it just slowed the film down at a place where the film doesn't really start for me until Ethan discovers he's got to break Lane out of prison. At that moment, you're like, oh, I get it now. he's going to break Lane out, and then everything's going to go tits up, and then it's all. So at that point, you're like, okay, now I'm invested, because until that point, the film is slightly treading water with MacGuffins and amorphous kind of ideas of villainy, and you're not quite sure what they're doing and who Lark is and how it's all going to play out. And so the moment that Ethan sees Lane's picture in her study, you're like, oh, okay, this is. Lane has somehow arranged for Ethan to break him out of prison. He's the only guy who could put him in prison, and he's the only guy who can get him out of prison. It's like, this is, I see where this is going now, and now I can settle in to see, like, how on earth is he going to get out of this? It's like, this is a proper impossible challenge for Ethan to solve. So that was the reason that the musical number went, and it was the right decision ultimately.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, our final question is just, should they come back to this in a couple of years? Would you do a third mission? Our like dream is for McQuarrie to come back and sort of complete his little trilogy.
That would be awesome, wouldn't it? Yeah, I often said that to Chris. It's like, dude, you're doing the trilogy. You've got to do the trilogy. But there's a point. He is the mental and physical exertion of directing these films and writing them. Don't forget, and producing, because he's producing with Tom. It is an enormous amount of energy, and you are shredded at the end of it. I mean, mentally and emotionally shredded and exhausted. And the idea of climbing Mount Everest again is not appealing the moment you've come down. It's like that whole thing with Daniel Craig when he finished Spectre. He joked about, I never want to be in a body. Didn't he say, I'd rather cut my hand? And of course, when you've just been through that, I do understand. But then, of course, 5 years go by. How many years is it since Spectre? It was 4 years. It'll be 5 years till the movie comes out, the new one. So yeah, of course. So I would listen. For me, I'm a fan, and it's a huge privilege to collaborate with Tom Cruise and Chris McQuarrie. Like I said, they're great collaborators, and they're incredibly nice to me and very kind to my family. And so my wife loves them and is very delighted if I want to work for them again, which is an enormous part of, the challenge of making films. Is it's an enormous time commitment, and your family is caught up in that, whether they like it or not, And so I would love to do another one. Yeah, it'd be a massive privilege. It's like I work with Lee Smith, another editor on X-Men First Class, and he had done Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, and he'd done Inception and as well at that point, and he was about to do Dark Knight Rises, and he was thrilled to be doing the third one with Chris Nolan, and what an honor. It's such an honor, and so exciting.
But Nolan's a guy too that does movies in between. I was just talking to Brad.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. Yeah, I mean, I that's true. Yeah, Prestige. What a great film. Yeah. Oh, I love that movie. Oh.
But I was up at Pixar talking to Brad Bird about Incredibles, and it's like, do you just want to do a third one to get it out of the way? And he said, no, I want to do what Nolan does, which is he goes away, he makes another movie, and then they'll come back to him and say, well, do you want to do one now? And you go, I'll do one, now. But
yeah. Well, who knows? I mean, Chris he's always got many projects that he's developing. I mean, scripts that he's written or scripts that he's sent, or he's.
Now's the time for his Booth movie, I think.
Yeah.
And the one that
the interesting thing about Booth, though, is that it's not. I think it's more of a. Like it's a 6-hour miniseries. It's not, if you're going to do it properly, with what he wants to do with Booth, it's not necessarily a movie necessarily.
This is about John Wilkes Booth.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a proper like biopic. It's not just the end of his life, the assassination. It's everything leading up to that, and it's a really interesting story. And him and Tom they're cooking up stuff all the time. Yeah. It's exciting. Ideas that they've got. A lot of people would love to see Edge of Tomorrow too. Yeah. That's a great film, and I'd like to see Emily Blunt back and stuff. But let's see what happens. I don't know what will happen. But it would be an honor and a privilege and enormous fun and very exciting to be asked back to do another one. Yes.
Well, on behalf of Charles, I wanted to say thank you for accepting this mission.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me. And
so much.
Hello to everyone out there in Light the Fuse podcast land. No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just like, see the movie. It's coming out on Thanksgiving. Yeah, see it. And there's some cool special features in there. You know, turn off the motion smoothing on your TV, please.
Yes,
before you watch the film.
Yeah.
Please Google how to turn off motion smoothing on your TV. It drives me nuts when I go to people's houses and the motion smoothing is on. It's a whole deal, isn't it?
That's the default.
Oh,
that's how it comes to.
Turn it off as the default, please. All the TV manufacturers.
There are directors that are getting together. I think that are starting to. They're trying to convince the TV companies.
Yeah,
to stop
it's got to.
I don't get why you would ever want to watch anything like that.
I know, it's so frustrating. It makes it look like makes it look like 1970s television, doesn't it? It's terribly disappointing. Anyway, all right,
thank you so much.
Cheerio, guys.
That was our Eddie Hamilton interview, and I think we both kind of fell in love with him.
Yes, yeah, he's great. And at the end there, we talked about the motion smoothing. This was recorded, as you heard, before Thanksgiving, and since then, now, since the Blu-ray release, Tom Cruise and Christopher McQuarrie have come out and done their little PSA to talk about motion smoothing, which is very important, and you hear now Eddie Hamilton also chime in about it as well.
So yeah, I guess that's it for us. Be sure to do all the things that we told you before. Like and subscribe, rate and review.
Follow us everywhere.
Follow us everywhere. Go to LightTheFuse-podcast.com for extra stuff. And until next week, for Charles, this is Drew. Bye.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. And before we go, another mission, should you choose to accept it, please rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes. And remember that you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at LightTheFusePod and email us questions or comments at lightthefusepodcasts@gmail.com. If you'd like to watch the original Mission Impossible television show, all 7 seasons are currently available to stream on Amazon Prime. This message will self-destruct in 5 seconds.